For more analysis, we can speak now to Johann Soufi, who's a lawyer and expert in international justice here in Paris. Just tell us, first of all, what are the cornerstones of the South African case and what arguments have they been making today at The Hague?
So there were two arguments, mainly by the South African team. The first one is that Israel is committing acts that amount as genocide, killing, but also infliction of condition of life that are aimed at bringing the destruction of the Palestinian population, but also that these acts were committed with a specific intent to destroy the part or the totality of the Palestinian population of Gaza. So there were both evidence adduced with respect to the crimes, but also statements, for example, of Israeli political and military leaders in order to support the allegation of the intent.
Yeah, so, I mean, they were pointing the fingers, weren't they, quote, at the highest levels of state in Israel. I mean, who specifically do you think they're pointing the finger of blame at here?
Well, at the very top of the Israeli chain of command and political system, the President Herzog, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but also a wide range of ministers within Netanyahu's administration. But what was also interesting in the South African case was the link that they made between the speeches of these political and military leaders and the action of Tzahal, of the Israeli army, on the ground in Gaza.
OK, and of course, much of this case hinges on the 1948 Genocide Convention. It's somewhat ironic, isn't it, that this is being used against Israel. I'd just like to ask you, how do you go about proving? I mean, what constitutes solid proof of genocidal intent?
Well, I have to recall first that the purpose of these preliminary hearings and conservatory measures is not to prove beyond reasonable doubt that there is currently a genocide. The standard is to prove that there are plausible reasons to believe that there is a risk, a serious risk of genocide. And I believe that's what the South African have done. Now the debate, the legal debate about whether or not Israeli action right now amounts to genocide, that's a debate that's going to take place over the many years that's going to follow. And so the ultimate decision on this aspect of the case going to take place much later.
Yeah, you make an important point there, which is that no ruling is expected for several more years, which begs the question, is this case, in your opinion, likely to change anything in the short to medium term as far as what's happening on the ground in Gaza is concerned?
Yes, because the decision on the conservatory measures, so like immediate measures, is going to take place within weeks, probably in 2 or 3 weeks. And that might be, as it was recalled in the documentary, for example, a ceasefire or perhaps access to humanitarian agencies or investigators of the ICC, for example. So that's going to take place very soon. And that's going to have a political impact, for example, in Europe, but also in the US, because the price of putting a veto, for example, on a ceasefire, the political price going to be much more important for the Biden administration if there is a decision that there is a serious risk of genocide in Gaza right now.
OK, thanks for making that point. That's really helped to sort of clear up my understanding of it as well. Now, importantly, tomorrow, Israel's going to have their chance to respond. I mean, what would you anticipate would be the sorts of arguments that they're likely to put forward?
I think the first argument going to be on the competence, on the jurisdiction of the court. They might argue that because South Africa is not directly impacted by the alleged violation of the 1948 Convention on Genocide, they have no standing. But this has been already ruled by the ICJ in prior rulings in Gambia against Myanmar. And they have considered that because this is such an important matter, prevention of genocide that any state can bring the case forward. I think the second argument, which is going to be much more substantial and much more controversial, going to be on whether or not the action of Israel right now in the Gaza Strip amount to genocide. And Israel is going to say that their action are conducted within the boundary of IHL, of international humanitarian law, and that there is no intent to destroy the Palestinian population, that basically the military operation is aimed only at destroying Hamas.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you very much indeed for helping us to make sense of these complex legal proceedings. Johann Soufi, lawyer and expert in international justice. Thank you very much indeed.